Out front tonight, the breaking news, a grim new milestone. The number of known coronavirus cases globally now 13 million. The number of deaths more than 570,000. And the United States, with only 4% of the world's population, makes up nearly a quarter of those deaths. 135,512 dead Americans tonight. And the number of the cases in this country headed for another single-day record. As of tonight, 35 states are going in the wrong direction into case count. 2, including California, the most populous state in this country, just announcing rolling back measures today. And while Dr. Anthony Fauci, meantime, and President Trump are on completely different pages. Here's Dr. Fauci.
Here it is. It's happened, your worst nightmare, the perfect storm. It is truly historic. We haven't even begun to see the end of it yet.
We haven't even begun to see the end of it. That is not the message President Trump wants you to hear. He knows it reflects poorly on his leadership at this point and highlights a failure to get the pandemic under control. That is why Trump is yelling the opposite as loudly as he can. And in this case, the opposite is blatantly untrue.
We test more than anybody by far. And when you test, you create cases. So we've created cases. We have the lowest mortality, or just about the lowest mortality in the world. We're doing a great job.
As usual, it is necessary to spend some time here putting facts out there because the president did not. First, the mortality rate, right? And he says the best in the world are about. Well, that's not true. The U.S. is the 9th worst mortality rate, according to Johns Hopkins. Second, the claim that when you test, you create cases. This is false. New cases are at a daily all-time high, nearly 50,000 today. And that vastly outpaces any increase in testing. Here are the numbers. Since June 12th, there has been a 37% increase in testing in the United States, and over that exact same time frame, the number of cases has gone up 152%. So the president's claim on testing is factually incorrect, as it has been every single time he has made it. And because he makes that claim almost every single day, and it is corrected almost every single day on this program and others, at this point it is fair to say he is lying. He is not misinformed, he is not unaware. On this, he is simply not telling the truth. But his top doctor does tell the truth on the facts, the figures, the data. And so even as Trump's team now tries to put out a list of mistakes Fauci has made, and Trump publicly has slammed him, we are left with the reality that Fauci opens his mouth with facts, and Trump opens his mouth to say anything that makes the virus seem small and not a problem.
Well, I think we are in a good place.
We're facing a serious problem now.
And we're almost up to 40 million in testing, and 40 million people, which is unheard of.
I think what we do need is better screening, broader screening in the country to get a feel for really what the penetrance of this infection is.
If you look at the chart of deaths, deaths are way down.
It's a false narrative to take comfort in a lower rate of death.
So we were able to close our country, save millions of lives, open, and now the trajectory is great.
Some states who went from shutdown to complete throwing caution to the wind.
Talk about cognitive dissonance, except this is much more than that. This is one person sharing facts and the other not. And as for Fauci's point about some states throwing caution to the wind, take Florida, a state the president praised for reopening when it did so without meeting the White House Coronavirus Task Force guidelines. That state recorded more than 15,000 new cases yesterday, which is the highest number of new cases in a single day for any state at any point during this entire pandemic. Florida now has more cases than most countries on the planet. More than 8,000 people are currently hospitalized in Florida. An infectious disease expert in Miami saying, quote, "Miami is now the epicenter of the pandemic. What we were seeing in Wuhan 6 months ago, now we're there." So when the president says we're doing a great job, what exactly does he mean? Caitlin Collins is out front live near the White House to begin our coverage tonight. And Caitlin, even as we laid out, as I said, it's, the facts and fiction here. The Trump administration is going out of its way now to discredit Fauci, who is the top infectious disease doctor in the country in charge of this.
Yeah, I think that's really one of the big takeaways for people sitting at home wondering when they're going back to work or when schools are going to reopen and if it's going to be safe to send their kids back, is you are seeing people inside the White House go behind Dr. Fauci's back and distribute this anonymous list of things that he said publicly several months ago compared to what he's saying now. Things like when he initially said that there wasn't guidance to wear masks, something that the Surgeon General also said and explicitly told people do not go out and buy masks, yet those statements statements weren't included in that list that the White House sent around over the weekend, and neither were the many false claims that the president himself has made about the virus, like the one about testing that you just pointed out. It's been pointed out to him many, many times by his own health officials that just is not the case. And we've seen this, Erin, for months. The White House tried to deny there's any kind of tension between President Trump and Dr. Fauci. They say that they get along when they're in person. There's never raised voices when they're in the same room. But it's pretty clear what's happening here, and it's that they are trying to undermine Dr. Fauci at times by distributing statements like this that he made and then denying today at the press briefing that they were doing that. You know, it's one thing to do it and to just say you did it, but they are denying that they're actually pushing this out there and saying that they're just answering questions when they're not. It was on background. It was not attributed to any official inside the communications shop. And this comes as you've seen several television programs, including CNN, say that they've tried many times to get Dr. Fauci to come on air so they could do an interview with him, to only be rejected by the White House. And he's been doing some of these print interviews, like that one he did last week where he revealed that he had not briefed the president in over 2 months. So it does reveal this gulf between the president and one of his top health advisors, no matter how much the White House is trying to deny that anything is happening there.
All right. Thank you very much, Caitlin. And I want to go now to our Dr. Sanjay Gupta and Dr. Jonathan Reiner, director of the Cardiac Cath Lab at GW, also, of course, advised President George W. Bush's medical team for 8 years in the White House. So, Dr. Reiner, the White House has been making a concerted effort to discredit Dr. Fauci. The president and Fauci haven't spoken in months, and Fauci has been left for, we just saw him there at a panel, right? These sort of panel events that universities or think tanks are holding. That's the only way we hear from him, not in interviews on television. How much does all of this concern you right now?
It's very destructive. Look, if you're trying to get the public to believe a fantasy, then you have to discredit the truth tellers. And that's what the president is doing. Over the last few months, the White House Coronavirus Task Force has really been pushed to the side. A lot of the initial functions of the task force in terms of coordinating a nationwide response have been outsourced to the states. So the states are primarily responsible for testing now. Although the CDC and the federal government issued guidelines, really careful guidelines for opening the states were given the authority to open on their timeline, and the president tacitly encouraged them to speed that up. And we've also heard that from people like Jared Kushner that the strategic national stockpile is for the federal government's use, not for the state's use. So in some ways, the coronavirus task force has become marginalized. Yeah. And when you see the leader of the task force discredited by the president, it's for a purpose.
Sanjay, Dr. Fauci said about coronavirus today, we haven't even begun to see the end of it yet, what I just played. And he said that this is clearly the most challenging public health crisis he has ever dealt with, right, in his many decades career, which has included HIV, anthrax, Zika, Ebola. But the president obviously doesn't care. And one of the comments that the White House pointed to from Fauci as they've been trying to discredit him was this one.
No, right now, at this moment, there is no need to change anything that you're doing on a day-by-day basis.
That was, of course, very early on. And then he went on, Sanjay, to say this. This is what they left out. This is what he then said.
Right now, the risk is still low, but this could change. I've said that many times, even on this program. You've got to watch out, because although the risk is low now, you don't need to change anything you're doing. When you start to see community spread, this could change and force you to become much more attentive to doing things that would protect you from spread.
Sanjay, I want to make the point. That was in February. NBC still had its promoting the Olympics, okay? He said, if you see community spread, this is all going to change. Well, guess what? We saw community spread. So he was very clear as to what would happen for him to change his point of view. They left that part out. How harmful is this effort to discredit Fauci?
It's really worrisome. I mean, I think obviously the briefings went away. That took away a certain seriousness. I think as the briefings went away, there was a lot of people who thought, well, this thing's essentially over. The states are starting to reopen. The briefings have stopped. At the same time, our reporting, we knew that people were saying, as you pointed out, it wasn't that people were necessarily mad at Fauci. It was just that he reminded them of the pandemic. So it was a little bit of an out of sight, out of mind situation for a while. And now there's this active sort of very unfair, these chop edit sort sort of, things that are being released to make him look bad. The country's confused. There's a lot of whiplash going on. People still think, there's still a segment of the population think this is a hoax. They think it's over, whatever it may be, as they discredit Fauci, who is saying, hey, we're still in the early days of this. You then discredit that guy. It's harmful. We're not going in the right direction. We know that. We see the numbers. This makes it even worse.